The Great Peace Summit between humans and the Zalthari Empire was held aboard the Starlight Concorde, a massive neutral space station floating in the cold silence between both territories. For the first time in nearly 30 years, warships from both sides were silent. No firing, no battles, only tense hope. Humans arrived in full uniform, generals, scientists, diplomats, and among them, a small group of hand-picked soldiers meant to serve as security and representation. One of them stood out, not because of rank, but because of youth. Private Elias Ward was only 19. He was barely out of training. This was his first off-Earth mission, and he was already part of one of the most important events in human history. He adjusted his stiff collar nervously as he looked around the giant hall. It was beautiful high ceilings of transparent crystal, golden lights that shimmered like stars, and long banners of both species displayed side by side. But he wasn't admiring the architecture. He was watching the Zalthari. They had just entered. They were tall, graceful beings with silver-blue skin, glowing markings along their temples, and long, flowing robes that looked almost alive. They moved like dancers, but there was nothing soft about their eyes. These were warriors, leaders, strategists, and in the center of their formation walked Queen Cythera, ruler of the Zalthari. She was taller than the others, her head held high. Her robe shimmered like water under moonlight. She wore no crown, but she didn't need one. Her presence alone silenced the room. Everyone stood. Even the humans, who had been trained to never bow to a foreign leader, felt something deep like pressure or gravity pulling them to attention. Elias tried not to stare, but her eyes met his, and they stayed there. The queen had paused in her walk. Her guards stopped. Her council members looked confused. The human delegation looked at each other. What was happening? Queen Cythera raised her hand and slowly pointed. Directly at Elias. "He will be mine," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. Gasps filled the hall. Elias's heart jumped. His legs stiffened. His mouth went dry. "Excuse me?" General Roth, the head of the human security team, stepped forward, clearly offended. "What do you mean by that, Your Majesty?" Queen Cythera's lips curved into a smile. Not cold, just amused. "It is an old tradition," she said calmly. "When a peace summit is held between ancient rivals, the monarch may choose one symbol of the opposing force. A gesture of trust. I choose the young human. He is untouched by bitterness. His presence may help bridge what war has broken." General Roth frowned. "He is a soldier, a private, not a gift. We are not here to trade people. Do not see." "Him is a gift," the queen replied. "I see him as a guide." Everyone looked at Elias. He stood frozen. He had no idea what to say. What could he say? He was just a soldier. No medals, no experience. Just the youngest one in the room. One of the human diplomats whispered something to Roth. The general looked annoyed, finally gave a sharp nod. "We will speak privately," Roth said. "But understand he is not yours. He belongs to Earth." "Queen." Cythera nodded once, and her group continued forward. The moment passed, but the room remained uneasy. Later that evening, Elias sat alone in his assigned room aboard the station. His hands were still shaking. He had been told to remain calm. "Don't argue. Don't resist," they said. "We need this peace. If she thinks you're important, use it." But Elias didn't feel important. He felt like a pawn. There was a soft knock at his door. It opened, and a woman in a silver uniform stepped in. She was part of Earth's intelligence division. She handed him a small device, a communicator with locked data. "If things go wrong," she whispered, "this is your backup." Elias frowned. "What's going to go wrong?" "Hopefully nothing," she said. "But you're not just a guest now. You're a piece on the board. And someone has to watch the queen." Before he could ask more, she left. The next day, the transfer was made. Elias stood in the docking bay, surrounded by tall Zalthari guards. Their ship, shaped like a silver bird, with wings folded inward, hovered silently nearby. Queen Cythera approached. She looked at Elias, her eyes scanning him like a puzzle. "You are younger than I thought," she said softly. "You didn't ask." For my age, Elias replied. The queen's mouth twitched slightly. Was that a smile? You will learn, she said, and so will I. With that, Elias followed her onto the Zalthari vessel. The doors closed behind him. The Zalthari royal ship moved through space in silence. It was like no ship Elias had ever seen. There were no sharp edges, no metal plates, no loud engines. Everything inside was smooth, glowing gently with soft blue light. The walls pulsed. Like they were alive, Elias sat alone in a quiet chamber. It looked like a room made for peace, not war. There were no weapons, no guards, just one small seat and a round window showing the stars. He felt out of place. Just a soldier, just a young man with no special rank or training in politics, yet here he was, traveling alone with the most powerful alien queen in the galaxy. The door slid open with a soft sound. Queen Cythera stepped inside, her silver robe flowing behind her. She looked calm, graceful, and completely in control. You were adjusting. Quickly, she said, studying him. I'm trying, Elias replied. She walked closer, not in a threatening way, but like she was curious. Most humans would show fear. Or anger? You show neither, she said. I was trained to stay calm. Training is not the same as nature, she said, tilting her head slightly. Your nature, ... is interesting. Elias didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure if this was a compliment or a warning. The queen sat across from him, folding her hands. I chose you because I wanted to understand, she said. Your kind, your people baffle me, because we're different, because you are dangerous. That word hung in the air like a shadow. Elias blinked. Then why? Take me, because I do not fear danger, she said. And because understanding is the first step to control. Now he understood. She didn't choose him as a guest. She chose him as a study. She leaned forward. Tell me about your planet, about Earth. Elias hesitated, but then began to speak. He told her about the oceans, the forests, the sky, about rain and music. It's about laughter and war, about how humans always argue but somehow survive together. She listened closely, just asking questions that were sharp and strange. Why do you cry? Why do you fight each other? Why do you forgive? Elias did his best to answer, but some things were hard to explain. Human feelings weren't simple. It's not like machines. Not like orders. The queen sat quietly after he spoke, her fingers touching her chin. Your kind is full of contradiction, she said at last. You feel deeply, yet kill quickly. You love, but betray. You fall, but rise again. We're human, Elias said simply. We're messy. The queen smiled slightly. Yes, that is the word. Messy. There was silence for a moment. The ship hummed around them. Then she stood up. You will not be locked away, she said. You may walk the ship. Ask questions. Speak freely. No. But you are watched. Am I a prisoner? No, she said. But neither are you free. She left the room, and the doors closed. The next day, Elias explored the ship. It was a floating palace filled with strange beauty, floating gardens, crystal-like halls, walls that whispered when touched. The Zalthari crew treated him with caution, not hatred. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with quiet fear. They had never seen a human up close. Elias could tell many of them didn't trust the queens. Decision. In one quiet hallway, he passed a group of young Zalthari studying at floating desks. A teacher was speaking in their soft, melodic language. The children stared at him as he walked by. One of them, a small girl with glowing white eyes, smiled and waved. Elias smiled back. That evening, back in his room, Elias found something odd, a message that had been left in the corner of the table. Hidden beneath a dish, a small data chip. He placed it into the reader device. A message appeared. A voice whispering in English. You're not here by accident. The Queen's interest is real, but others have plans. Be careful. Watch everything. You are not just a guest. You are humanity's foothold. Then the message ended. The device burned out and crumbled into ash. Elias sat still for a long moment. His heart beat faster. Someone, maybe a human spy, was on board, or had been. and they had left him a warning. He wasn't just here for peace. He was now part of something much bigger. Later that night, Queen Cythera visited again. She stood at the window looking at the stars. "Do you know what I fear, Elias?" she asked softly. He was surprised she used his name. "No," he said. "What do you fear?" "Change," she said. "Your kind brings change, fast, wild, uncontrolled. We are a species of order, but you burn through the old to make the new." Elias didn't answer. She turned to him. "I chose you, not to hurt you. But if you threaten what I protect, I will not hesitate." "I'm not here to harm your people," Elias said calmly. "But I won't let mine be used either." She looked at him, long and hard. Then, for the first time, she nodded with respect. "We will see what kind of human you truly are." She left, and Elias was left staring into the stars, knowing the real test had just begun. Elias walked the royal Zalthari ship like a silent observer. He was no longer a guest in a locked room, but he wasn't truly free either. Every hallway had quiet guards. Every wall whispered with hidden tech. Still, the Queen had kept her word. He was allowed to explore and observe. He did. He watched the way the crew moved, calm, disciplined. Like every step was part of a perfect plan. But Elias also saw something else: fear. Not fear of him, but fear of the Queen, even the high-ranking. Officers spoke with careful words when she was near. Nobody challenged her. Nobody laughed in her presence. It was like the whole ship was breathing through one set of lungs - hers. At meals, he sat alone at a corner table. Zalthari food looked beautiful, colorful fruits, glowing liquids, but most of it tasted strange. Still, he tried everything. One day, a young Zalthari technician passed by and dropped a plate of something warm and brown onto his table. "For your taste," she said quickly, then walked away. Elias tasted it. It reminded him of Earth stew. He smiled. Someone was paying attention. That night, he met with Queen Cythera again in the conversation room. It had no chairs. It's just soft mats and floating lights that moved like fireflies. "Tell me more," she said. "About war." Elias looked at her. "Which one?" "Any of them. You have so many." He paused. Then he told her about the Second World War, about how millions died, how cities burned. But he also told her about courage, rescue, and the rebuilding afterward. He told her about how enemies had become allies. "You see," he said, "humans don't stay enemies forever. We change. We move forward." The Queen sat quietly, her silver eyes unreadable. "Your strength," she said slowly, "comes not from power but from chaos." "That's not chaos," Elias said. "That's heart."
Ow.
In the days that followed, the Queen began taking Elias to meetings with her court. He stood behind her as she dealt with Zalthari, nobles, commanders, scientists. Some of them glanced at Elias with distrust. Others simply ignored him. But Elias noticed everything. At one meeting, a noble named Tharnik spoke boldly. He was tall and sharp-eyed. "The humans cannot be trusted," Tharnik said. "We should not bend our ways for them." "We're not bending," Cythera said calmly. "We are adapting. They will poison our order." Cythera gestured to Elias. "Then study this one. See if he is poison or possibility." Elias stepped forward. He didn't have a plan, but he spoke anyway. "You fear humans because we don't follow your rules," he said. "But that's not a weakness. That's what helps us survive." Narrowed his eyes. "Survival without order is collapse." "Not always," Elias replied. "Sometimes you have to tear down the old to make something better." There was silence. Then Queen Cythera gave a soft nod, spoken like a true firechild. Back in his room, Elias thought about that title. Firechild, that's what they called him now. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't praise. It was something in between, a mystery. He remembered the hidden message. You are humanity's foothold. He was beginning to understand what it meant. He wasn't just here to observe or be a symbol. He was here to show the Zalthari something new, something they didn't know they needed. One evening, he walked into the royal training hall. A group of young Zalthari warriors were practicing forms with long curved staffs. Their moves were perfect, fast, smooth, quiet. Elias watched for a while. One of them, tall female with braided hair, walked up to him. "You fight?" "Some," Elias said. She handed him a training staff. "Show." He didn't hesitate. He stepped into the ring. He knew he wasn't as graceful, but he was fast. He moved with instinct, not pattern. The fight began. The Zalthari fighter was quick, but Elias surprised her with a low feint, followed by a fast upward block. Tap, his staff touched her side. She stepped back, eyes wide. The other warriors clapped. In their way to slow claps of respect, the queen entered the room. Just then, she watched as Elias helped the fighter up. "He learns quickly," someone whispered. "No," the queen replied softly. "He adapts." Later, Elias sat with her in the star viewing chamber. "Your people follow rules like music," he said.
I thought he know his plan. Where's the surprise?
"We do not need surprise," she replied. "You will," Elias said, "because change is coming, whether you allow it or not." Queen Cythera looked at him. "You speak like a leader," she said. "I'm just a soldier," Elias replied. The queen turned to the stars. Sometimes a soldier becomes more, but not everyone was pleased with the queen's growing interest. In Elias, that night, in the shadowed halls of the ship, noble Tharnik spoke with others in secret. "This human is a spark," Tharnik said. "If we do not stop him, he will burn down the foundation of our empire." One of them asked, "What do you suggest?" Tharnik's voice was cold. "We remove the spark before it becomes a fire." The queen's ship arrived at Zareth IV, one of the oldest colonies in the Zalthari Empire. From above, it looked peaceful green valleys, shining towers, wide silver roads. But under the surface, something dangerous was growing. The queen had come to stop a quiet rebellion. Elias stood beside her as the shuttle landed. She wore a different robe today, darker, heavier, and layered with silver threads. It was the robe of a ruler preparing for judgment. "Why are they rebelling?" Elias asked. "They want freedom," Cythera replied, "but not through peace. They want to break away. Burn the structure we built." Elias looked at the land below. "Maybe they feel they don't have a choice." The queen didn't answer. The main city gates, a crowd had gathered. Out there, civilians, young, old, workers, farmers. They stood silently as the queen stepped out. Elias followed close behind, noticing how their eyes shifted to him. Some looked curious. Others looked hopeful. "He's the human," someone whispered. "That's the one the queen chose." The queen raised her hand. Her voice rang out clear and calm. "You live under my rule. I have protected this colony for decades. Why do you rise now?" A tall man stepped forward. His name was Varnes, a local teacher. "We rise because we are. Tired of silence," he said. "Tired of fear. The empire listens only to tradition, but the world is changing." He pointed to Elias. "You brought him to us. It's a symbol of change. But if you will not listen to him, then listen to us." The crowd murmured in agreement. Queen Cythera's expression did not change, but Elias could see the tension behind her. Calm face. Inside the city palace, the queen met with her advisors. "They are testing you," said Lord Tharnix. "Let me deal with them. One strike, and they will fall silent." "No," Cythera replied. "This is not a battle of blades. It is a battle of ideas." Tharnix's eyes narrowed. "Then you are already losing." Elias stepped forward. "Let me speak to them, not as a ruler, just as a person." Tharnix almost laughed. "You a soldier?" But the queen nodded. "Let him try." Elias walked alone into the outer market, where small groups of rebels gathered. He didn't wear armor. He didn't carry weapons. Only his plain earth uniform. People stared, but no one stopped him. He found Varnes near a food stall. "I didn't come to control you," Elias said. "I'm not a leader, not special. I'm just a human." "Then why did the queen choose you?" "I don't know," Elias said honestly. Maybe because I ask questions. Maybe because I listen. Varney studied him. You speak simply, he said. But your presence here has started something. Elias nodded. Maybe that's a good thing. Later, a small group of rebel thinkers met with Elias in secret. They spoke of change, of opening the empire to ideas from other worlds. They didn't want war. They wanted voice. Elias returned to the queen with what he had learned. They don't want to destroy your empire, he said. They want to be heard. If you give them a seat at the table, they won't burn the palace. Cythera sat in silence. Then she spoke softly. If I open the door, others will rush in. Then guide them, Elias said. Not with fear, but with hope. That night the attack came. Not from the rebels, but from within the palace. Tharnix had decided he'd waited long enough. Elias was in the garden when the blast hit the eastern tower. Smoke rose. Guards shouted. Panic spread. Then two masked figures rushed toward him. He dodged the first strike and rolled behind a stone wall. His training kicked in. Grabbing a loose branch from a broken tree, he used it like a staff blocking. In striking, one attacker fell. The other raised a blade. Suddenly, the queen appeared. With a swift motion, she stopped the attacker with a pulse from her hand device. He fell, unconscious. She looked at Elias. Are you hurt? He shook his head. I'm fine. What's happening? Tharnix, she said coldly. He has moved against me. The queen gathered her loyal forces. Elias stood by her side in the command hall. Let me help, he said. You already have, she replied. You made me see that leadership must evolve. Now I must prove it. She spoke to her people through a wide broadcast, her voice strong. Shadow within my own court has tried to steal power through fear. But I have seen another way, a new way, and will no longer rule alone. Tomorrow, I will form the first council of voices. Each colony shall have a voice. The human who stood with us will sit among them. Her words spread across the empire. The rebellion faded, not because of war, but because hope had finally spoken louder than fear. As the queen and Elias stood on the balcony above the quiet city, she turned to him. You risked yourself for my people. They were never just yours, Elias said. She nodded slowly. You've changed me. You changed yourself, he replied. Then she said, almost to herself, the fire beneath the throne burns away more than enemies. It burns away pride. They watched the sunrise together, a new light for both worlds. A week had passed since the queen announced the formation of the first Council of Voices. Across the Zalthari Empire, people were talking about change. Some were excited, some were afraid. But no one could deny one truth. Everything had started. With a single human soldier, Elias Ward was no longer just a guest. He was now a representative. A symbol of what peace could look like. His face had appeared on Zalthari news crystals, and his name was whispered in both respect and suspicion. Even on Earth, stories were spreading. Some leaders praised him. Others questioned why one young soldier was acting like a diplomat, but Elias didn't care about fame. He cared about making this peace real. One evening, Elias received a message, a soft beep from the small Earth communicator hidden inside his jacket. It was from a Terran covert team, hiding somewhere deep in Zalthari space. Private Elias Ward. The voice whispered. You've done more than we expected. We need to meet. Urgent information. Coordinates attached. Elias hesitated. The queen had trusted him. She had given him access, protection, and a voice. But Earth's secret agents had been working behind the scenes long before this summit. He meant. They were calling him in. He didn't know if it was right, but he had to go. That night, Elias slipped. Away, he used a small shuttle pod hidden on the edge of the Queen's fleet. The Zalthari didn't stop him. He had earned enough freedom to move without guards now. He followed the coordinates to an abandoned satellite station hidden near the edge of a red gas cloud inside the old station. The lights flickered weakly. Dust floated in the air. It felt like a forgotten place. Then, out of the shadows, a man stepped forward. Earth uniform, scarred across his cheek. cold eyes. "Agent Rourke," the man said. "Earth intelligence?" "You've been busy, soldier. I've been helping build." "Peace," Elias replied. Rourke gave a dry laugh. "Peace. You've helped the Queen tighten her grip. You've made her smarter, more dangerous." Elias frowned. "She's changing. She's giving her people a voice." Rourke stepped closer. "You really believe that?" "She's using you, Private. She speaks of peace, but she still holds all the power. She still commands fleets." "Do you want from me?" Rourke's voice dropped low. "There's a rebel group deep in the Zalthari systems. They're not like the last one. They don't want a seat at the table. They want to break the table, destroy the Queen, shatter her. Empire. That's not peace. No, it's not. But we need chaos to level the field. And with your access, you could help us light the spark." Elias stepped back. "You want me to betray her?" "We want balance," Rourke said. "Right now, the Zalthari still control too much. If this Queen really trusts you, then use that." "Trust." Elias was silent. Rourke placed a small chip in his hand. "Think about it. Just one signal, one order. You'll be remembered as the human who brought true equality to the stars." Elias returned to the Queen's ship the next morning. No one asked questions, but the weight in his chest grew heavier. That night, the Queen invited him to her private study. The room was quiet, filled with soft lights and old star maps drawn by hand. "I noticed your absence," she said. "I needed time to think," Elias replied. Cythera nodded. "Change is heavy." Then she looked at him carefully. "There are whispers," she said, "of humans moving in secret. Of others who do not want peace?" Elias didn't answer. She stood up and walked to the window. "I do not ask you to spy. For me, I do not ask you to betray your people. But I ask for your truth." He reached into his jacket. He held out the chip. "I was given this," he said. "They want me to destroy what we're building." The Queen took the chip. Her hands were steady. "Will you know?" Elias said. "Because you're trying. Because I see hope in what we've made." Cythera looked at him, and for the first time, she bowed her head slightly. "Then you are more than a soldier," she whispered. "You are a builder." But peace is never simple. That night, an explosion rocked a colony world, not from Tharnix's group, not from the Queen's enemies, but from rogue human operatives. They had joined the violent rebels, and Earth denied any connection. The Queen called a meeting of the Council. Representatives from 6 colonies and Elias stood beside her. Some voices were loud. "Humans have betrayed us. This experiment must end. They are liars in friendly skin." Elias stepped forward. "I didn't cause this, but I will face it." The room fell silent. "I won't defend those who bring war. I won't run either. If we break now, then everything we built was fake. So let's prove it's real. Let's face this together." Slowly, the voices calmed. The Queen raised her hand. "Then we prepare, not for war, but for truth." The days that followed, a mission was planned. A joint team of Zalthari and humans, including Elias, would travel to the rebel zone not to attack, but to uncover the truth. It would be dangerous. But Elias wasn't afraid, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't just a soldier. He was a bridge between 2 worlds. The mission had been set. The Zalthari and humans would work together to uncover the truth behind the rogue operatives and their rebel group. There was no choice now. Peace would either survive this trial, or it would crumble. Elias stood at the edge of the Zalthari ship, looking down at the green planet below. The surface was dotted with scars, remnants of old wars, now overrun by forests and silent cities. But he knew it was only the beginning. This was where everything would change. "This is the place," the Queen had said, her voice cold, but determined. She had insisted on coming. She trusted no one more than Elias, and for the first time, Elias was starting to understand why. It wasn't just about his mission. It was about the hope she had found in him. She wasn't looking for a soldier anymore. She was looking for a partner in something much greater than her empire future. The mission team gathered, a mix of Zalthari soldiers, human operatives, and high-ranking officials. All of them prepared for the unknown. The rogue rebels had made it clear they wanted destruction, not peace. But who were they truly fighting? Elias looked at the queen as she stood nearby, watching the preparations. There was a subtle tension in the air, a calm before the storm. She approached him, her eyes soft, despite the weight of the mission ahead. "You've led us through fire already," she said. "This next step is ours to take together." Elias nodded. He wasn't just her soldier anymore. They had been through too much. Now, they were allies, in every sense of the word. "I'll stay by your side," Elias replied. She looked at him for a moment longer, her gaze intense. "Good. We move as one." The shuttle descended into the rebel zone. The planet's surface was covered in thick forests, and scattered villages stood in the distance. Some abandoned, some still showing signs of life. The rebels had hidden well bet. The Alliance had found them. The team landed quietly. Elias and the Queen stepped out first, followed by the others. They moved through the forest, staying low, their steps careful. Every sound, every shadow could hide an enemy. "Stay alert," Elias whispered to a nearby soldier. The Queen raised her hand. There, a group of rebel soldiers stood in front of them. They wore ragged clothes and carried weapons, but their eyes weren't filled with the rage Elias expected. Instead, they looked tired, as if they had been running for too long. Elias stepped forward, his voice calm. "We're not here to fight." So one of the rebels, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. "You're lying." "Brought an army?" "An army?" Elias asked, surprised. "We're not here for war. We're here for answers. We want to know why you're doing this." The rebel leader studied him. "You think we want peace? You think we can trust a queen who hides behind soldiers?" "I think you've been betrayed," Elias said. "By the queen, by your own people, by everyone who promised peace but didn't follow through." The rebel leader laughed bitterly. "Peace? Huh! Your queen is no better than the ones who came before her. She's just another ruler." Elias stepped closer, not with anger, but with the quiet strength that had come to define him. "I don't believe that. The queen is trying." "I'm trying, but you're right. There is too much distrust. And that's why we're here, so we can start fixing it together." The man looked into Elias's eyes. For a long moment it felt like time stood still. Then something shifted in the air. The rebel leader nodded. "You're not like the others." "I'm not," Elias said simply. "But I don't want to fight anymore. Not for power, not for revenge. I just want to build something better." The rebel leader looked at his comrades. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Back at the camp, Elias sat with the rebel leader, his mind spinning. They had uncovered the truth. The rebels were not evil, not all of them. They had been misled, just like the humans in the Zalthari had been. They were tired of being used as pawns in a game they didn't understand. They were fighting for freedom, not destruction. The queen joined them, standing at Elias's side. She spoke to the rebels, her voice steady, firm. "I will. Listen," she said. "I am not your enemy. I am your ruler. Yes, but more than that. I am your partner in this. You can shape the future with us, not as slaves to an empire, but as equals." "Duh!" The rebel leader bowed his head. "You have my respect, Your Majesty. If you truly want peace, then let us help you create it." Days passed, and the rebel fighters came together with the Zalthari and human soldiers. They worked side by side, not as enemies, but as partners. They repaired what had been broken cities' relationships. Trust. As the queen stood at the edge of the forest looking out at the new beginning, Elias stood beside her. They had done it. They had brought two sides together. They had fought not with weapons, but with understanding. "You were right," the queen said softly. "I chose you because you could see what I could not. You were the fire that burned away my doubts." Elias smiled.
"Oh,
"I didn't do this alone. We all did it." The queen nodded, her eyes shining with something Elias had never seen before. Hope, not for herself, but for the galaxy. "You've changed everything," she said. "No," Elias replied. "We've changed everything. Together." And so, the future began. The Queen of the Zalthari ruled not with fear, but with respect for herself, for her people, and for the humans who had become more than allies. They were friends, partners, her chosen ones, and together they would shape a new era, one where no empire stood alone.